Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to CKMS 102.7 FM. Radio Waterloo. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is our second episode on
Yay.
CKMS Radio Waterloo 102.7 FM. I am so happy you're able to join us. This is the Gems of Life show, and I'm very excited and super happy that you're able to join us today. As always, I always have guests, special guests with me, and two friends here with me. I call them the sisterhood friends, Jules and Nakeisha. Welcome to the show.
Woo!
Thanks so much
Hello,
for having us
everyone.
again, Fadhwa.
Yes, wonderful. So, since the last week, what has been, especially when we had launched our first show on the radio, what kind of messages are you getting and receiving from our listeners?
For me, people were like enjoying it. They were saying that, well done, ladies. They liked the energy, and they were very intrigued by, where it was one of those shows that they were able to just sit down and just enjoy the conversation between the three of us.
Wonderful. What about you, Jules?
For me, I am so grateful for all the people who tune in and listen and watch on social media. So the fact that I had a show and I said, "Hey, I'm going to be on the radio," people are like, "Hey, that's awesome! I can't wait to hear more." Now, people when they're listening to things though, or when they're reading things, they don't necessarily always comment afterwards. So I suggest that we'll probably take a couple of times to get some feedback,
Yes.
at least from people like me who get busy and go, "Oh, I'm going to put that on my list of things to listen to next."
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we did get some comments on the website that day, actually on the radio channel, the website CKMS, and it was wonderful. There was some corresponding there. People responded to our radio and some messages, some emails. So that was really wonderful. So I thank everyone who listened to our show. We had a chance to post the episode on YouTube, the Gems of Life show, YouTube. So if you missed the first episode, please go back and go to our channel and support us, subscribe, like, comment, and share. Because each week we'll be bringing you some fresh new topics,
Yeah.
discussions, conversations, and at the same time, we'll just have a good laugh.
Yes.
Yes. So,
Guaranteed.
yeah. So I was just wondering, sometimes we have, especially now, we tend to, when you're having a conversation with someone or speaking to someone, we tend to, for me personally, for a lot of years, and I openly talk about this, I used to be the person who, as a social butterfly as I am, when it came to expressing myself, I was the worst. I could never express myself. I could never speak freely. I could never express my emotions or my concerns to anyone, literally. And I remember a few years ago, I think about 5 years ago, I was at a event with a friend of mine, huge event here in Waterloo. And somebody came up to me and we just had a conversation. And all of a sudden, he says something that just completely, I just froze. I didn't expect it. It's things that you would hear outside when you're walking down the street, or you would get those looks, people looking at you in a weird way, or they will just whisper. But this
Mm.
gentleman actually came up to me and said to me, "Huh, you're wearing a headscarf. You must be a terrorist." And I just froze. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react or how to respond. But my friend, who's very, very outspoken, she just nudged me on my shoulder and said, "Say something. I can't speak for you, You have to say something." And I looked at her, I looked at this guy, and I'm like, sometimes it's just better to say nothing. What else would I say to somebody who is so close-minded? you know so my topic today, my question, and I thought we'll just have a conversation about this: has there been an instance in your life where somebody said something and maybe you kept quiet, silent, or the opposite, you lashed out or you said something? So, Jules, go first.
Oh, I love it when you drop bombs on me like that, Fadhwa.
Yes.
Wow. Well, as far as people saying things, it's always a challenge when somebody says something like in your in your example, out of the blue, that you are completely thrown back from and go, how the heck am I supposed to respond to this? And for me, the best memory I can think of is when this man was being just really pushy sexually, and he, and this happens to a lot of women. I'm sure this has happened to a lot of women, but I was not expecting it because I'm usually quite clear about my intentions. If I'm flirtatious and I'm just like playful with somebody, then I only am playful with somebody that I really trust. So I knew I was being really clear, and I was not giving off any vibes of any sort as far as being attracted to this man. And he said something like, "Oh, well, women always want it, right?"
Mm.
Mm,
And it was kind of out of the blue. And I remember just going, what the heck do I say right now?
mhm,
And it was one of those moments where I didn't know what to say, and realized, and you know how you have those moments where everything in you freezes and you go, this is how people feel. They want to say something, they're really upset or they're outraged, and they don't know what to do. And
Mm.
I thought, this is speechless.
mm,
Uh, I don't remember exactly what happened in that situation, but I remember having another situation later on in a frisbee game. And there was a man, because it's a co-ed frisbee league, high level competitive, like obviously he'd been playing for a long time. And he had grabbed people, women, very close to the genitalia region.
mm,
And I remember at that point, probably because of the last situation that happened, just going, we cannot let this happen.
mhm,
This is not okay. And if nobody else is going to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that it kind of takes those experiences, or even having somebody else have those experiences and not seeing them do something, to make you actually realize, like, you need to take action, you need to say something. And in that situation, I did say something. I think I was maybe the captain at the time, and I spoke to the other captain so that captain could talk to them. And obviously, a very different situation than in public, where there was actually a role of authority that I could connect to. But it was really important that I spoke up, and because it had happened to another teammate of mine before it happened to me. And as paralyzing as it is, and how weird it feels to not know what to do, there's also something so empowering about saying, I'm just not going to let this continue.
Mm.
And it really was the best thing to do, but it's not easy. And I didn't know how not easy it was until it happened to me personally, to go, oh my gosh, like, I'm in shock. And when we're in shock, it's hard to know what to say. And I'm sure that you were in the same situation with your guy, Fadhwa.
mhm,
You're like, right? It's really easy to go speechless when you're shocked.
mhm. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. You're frozen, right? And it, you are just wondering what is the best way. Sometimes in situations, sometimes it's just stay silent, because
Mm.
how do you react to somebody like that, right? And there are situations where you have to speak up. And for you especially, you had to build that inner resilience within you and the strength. So next time you were able to speak up. You had that courage and confidence to actually say something. And that was the moment for you, that voice that said, it's time for you to say something, right? What about you, Nakisha?
For me, I'll say mine is a little bit different. I think for me, because I come from a culture where, whatever happened at home, stay at home, and we were taught to be silent about a lot of things. So I think for me, I was silent for years about my experience, which was the pain that I was going through, the disappointment that I had growing up, and just overall my childhood. And it was something that I was silent about for years. And what I didn't recognize was that it was affecting me internally, to the point where I started to experience depression. And that silent, it's crippled me to the point where I just felt like no longer exist. I didn't know who I was. I was just going through the motion. And how I was able to find my voice was by start writing out my pain. That was how that journey started, where I start writing and I start writing out my pain. And then one day hit me where, I was able to say to myself, wait, this is no longer you. You have overcome this, and just release everything that was within me. And so I had to take it a bit further, because it's one thing to say, yes, this is your pain and acknowledging it. But if you're not speaking out, and if you're not letting everybody know exactly what is going on, all this tension and this hurt and this pain and anxiety and everything that's boiled up within you, it builds up. And then one of the things that it comes out in different ways. And for me, depression was one of the things. So that's where I was inspired to write my book and publish my book. And even that was hard for me to really publish my book, because at one point I'm like, wait, this is my story. I don't want nobody to know anything about me. I don't want to tell the world, my darkest moment. So it was really, really hard. And I sat on my manuscript for 6 months. And I remember I had a coach. It's like, when are you going to publish your book? I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to publish it. It's for me. And she's like, no, it is for the world. And give me a date now. So in that moment, I had to give her a date when I was going to publish my book. And then that's where the journey began. And then once my book was published, like, oh my goodness, it was like I gave birth to me. And then I was able to start advocate for me. I was able to start advocate my wants, my needs to my family, to everyone around me. And that's how come I was able to quit my job. I was able to get to the point where, like, wait, this is no longer serving me. This is very toxic for me. I no longer want to be here. I had to even turn to my family and, like, wait, no, I'm no longer going to be treated like this. I'm no longer going to accept this. This is how I want you to treat me. This is how what I expect from you. So just finding that voice within me to give birth to me. I often tell people I gave birth to Nakeisha at 39, because I felt like just opening up and telling my story and finding my voice gave me the power to just live freely, and just be happy and find that joy from deep within.
Mhm. Wow, that's really powerful, and actually, I can relate to just what you said as well, Makisha. Growing up, it's the same thing. You grow up, you're as a young girl, you're just told what to do, and that's it. You're not there was no room for expressing yourself or your concerns or
Mhm.
ideas, let alone anything else, or even your dreams. And then growing up, forget about youth. You get married, you find yourself in this relationship
Yes.
where you cannot even start to begin to express your concerns. The
Mhm.
simplest ways of communicating with your spouse. I grew up not having those tools, right? And then you're sitting down with another adult person, you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, let's be two civilized people, let's communicate our emotions. And you don't have the technique to do so, right?
Mhm.
And you just go with what you have. And I find that that was one of the difficult moments even for me in my adult life, because I realized that there's so many aspects of communication that we are missing in our own lives. And
Mhm.
it is now that I really truly appreciate, because I'm thinking, whoa, hold on, I have a voice in here that's ready to speak up, it's ready to express itself. And you talk about giving birth, we have that within ourselves to give birth to a new voice. It's there. We just need to rejuvenate it and give
Yes.
it power.
Yes.
And we tend to silence it with so many different things. You mentioned something very interesting. You outgrew yourself, you outgrew
Mhm.
that
Oh
part of
yeah.
your life. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that part, and we hold on to our past. We
Mhm.
hold on to our situations, things that happened to us, and we're in our adult life and we're still holding on to something that
Yes.
happened
Yes.
to us, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's holding us prison, and we are constricted by it, and it leaves us deflated. It sucks out the life out of us. And you're looking, when you really look at it, hold on, just like you said, that's not me. That was then. The situation was different. I am a different person. I have grown. I have outlived that situation. Why am I still holding on to it? So
Exactly.
when we
Exactly.
talk about silencing and speaking up, I think to me the best one first is to gain that confidence within yourself to actually speak up, for yourself. Like you say, advocate for yourself. Let your voice speak for you, and stay no more silenced for the fact that that was your past. We need to silence the past and move forward with the future. That's how I see it now.
Yes,
And say enough is enough. You've
yes.
you've outlived it. You've outdone yourself then. Now it's time to move on and grow from it and learn from it, because there's always lessons.
You're so right. I remember growing up, one of the things that my mom and my grandmother always said, like, a child should be seen, not heard. And those are some of the ways that,
Mhm.
you're silent as a child. So you grew up with that silence, and our, like, from my background and my teaching, whatever a child learned within the first 6 years of their life stay with them forever. That's it, right?
Mhm.
And so whatever lesson that you teach your children at an early age, just know that they're going to grow with those lessons. So we now need to be so mindful. What are the things that we're telling our children? Like, even for my kids, I right now, like, one of the things I tell my daughter and my son: don't let anyone take your voice away. Don't let anyone silence you. If someone tell it's a secret, guess what? It's time to talk, because you're in danger. There shouldn't be any secret between you and anyone right now. And those are the language that we need to start telling our children, so that they know, hey, it's okay for me to speak. It's okay for me to have a voice. And another thing too is, like, one of these things that we grew up here in North America, where you need to have an indoor voice and an outdoor voice. And I'm like, no, you just have a voice. Whatever your voice is, no one have the right to tell you how to use that voice. Right?
Yeah, I still use that. I still say inside
Yeah.
voice to my kids.
Yeah. But then you look at it, I often say, like,
You
we
know?
look at us from, like, a warmer climate weather. When you grow up in a warmer climate weather, we're mostly outside,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Unless you're sleeping or you're eating, you're outside. So we have one voice, right? So that voice might be very loud, because guess what? We don't have the walls echoing those voice to us, like, to tell you that, to tone your tune. So when you come into an environment like North America, where you're enclosed at all time, and for a lot of people, they say, well, they're loud, they're very loud. But you got to remember, we were growing outside.
Hmm.
80% of our daily living is outside. There's no such thing as being too loud outside. There's dogs barking, there's animal run, there's cars, there's truck, there's all these other noise. So if somebody needs to hear you, guess what? You got to be loud enough. There's no whispering.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get that, especially with our culture, where we're too aggressive or we're too loud, but we're coming from a different environment where there's no such thing as indoor, outdoor. It's just one voice.
Hmm.
And we didn't have telephones and all these stuff. You yell for your neighbor, right? You yell for whoever you want. You
Yes.
know, you stay here and you yell 5 miles away and they hear you. That's how we were brought up. So it's hard for you to suppress those kind of voice. And I think when we come into a country like this, now we feel like we got to suppress it, because
Hmm.
how we speak and our tone of our voice is no longer normal,
Hmm.
right? We need to adjust. And then we start mentally internalize that, and then we kind of lose our voice somewhere in between that as well too, right? With that adjustment, right? So
I'm just
yeah.
curious to see, like, myself and Nikisha, we are both from a different country. Jules, I'm very curious to hear your version, coming, North America. I just want to hear, because you're from here, you have your roots here, generational. I just wanted to see and pick up on how is that different from what we just talked to you about.
Well, it's I mean, that's the best thing about this show, right? We all come from different cultures and different
Yes.
roots.
Yes.
Yes.
And the really cool thing when I am listening to you guys speak is I was like, well, I was able to say whatever I wanted, and I felt free to talk, and there was privileged reality where I was able to be myself, but that didn't really make it easier to be myself, as strange as that is, because like you guys were saying, uh, there's still a pattern or a program that was instilled upon me as a child
Mm.
that I was modeled into believing was the way to be, just because it was the only way that I knew.
Yes.
And I've been having conversations with people lately, so it's perfect you're talking about it now. But that ability to actually recognize that what we are teaching as parents, and obviously I'm going to keep going to parenting because I'm all about like leadership and raising future
Yes.
leaders. But that idea that we grow up in has to be something that we at some point actually choose to look at
Mhm.
and recognize, like, wow, that wasn't mine, that was my parents,
Yes.
and I get to choose now what I want to do with this and what I want my kids to grow up as. And it was really funny. The other day we were at a friend's place and she pulled out a little booklet. And the funny thing is that I made a little booklet when I wrote my parenting book. There's a parenting pocket guide. And she pulled out this parenting pocket guide and she said, "This is what my mom gave me when I was 14." And it's called how to help or tips for teenagers, how to help teenagers better get along with their parents.
Mm.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. and as we're going through it, it's put out. I look at the front. It's a 1978, and it's put out by the Catholic Church. And she said, "This is honestly what my mother gave me
Mm.
when I was a kid, and she wanted me to follow and adhere to these principles."
Mhm.
And I said, "Okay, I will read accordingly." And I had to read parts of it out loud because these kids were rebelling against their parents. They really wanted something. And so the book was trying to reiterate that they could see their perspective, and they were really upset that their mom didn't want them to go out late or stay up late. And the boy his parents didn't want him to buy a car. And then it was guilt, shame, blame, like throughout the whole
Oh,
rest of
wow.
the book. It
Yeah.
was endless. You do realize that you could get hit by a car, and if you did, you'd be in the hospital.
Mhm.
And who do you think would visit you? Would your friend who you party with visit you? No. Right? Your parents would be
Wow.
there for you. And
Yeah.
your mom your dad might have to get another job, and your mom might have to give up all that money she saved up for her new washer.
Wow.
Mhm.
Which, all of these things, I was like, oh my gosh. And I kept reading and reading. And I was like, holy crap, this is crazy that this is real,
Mm.
that this was something that was taught to you. And there was all of this shame and guilt. Nobody's going to be there for you, but your parents will be there for you. And you have to remember to be thankful for them now, because one day you won't be able to write that on their gravestone. That's how it ended. And I remember just going, holy cow, this is crazy. And I
Mhm.
took it home to my 14-year-old son. And I said, Hayden, you are going to get a real kick out of this. But before you read it,
Mm.
you have to understand that this was actually given to our friend by her mom. And she wasn't giving it to her like I'm giving it to you as a joke.
Mhm.
She's giving it to us as in real life.
Wow.
And he finished the book, Mom, and he said, wow, Mom, that's like shame and guilt propaganda.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was like,
Oh.
I am so glad that you are able
Mm.
to recognize that.
Mm.
And I'm glad that he can see the programming that was instilled within that,
Yes.
because I've been clear about not doing that.
Mhm.
But it's phenomenal how we think about how much we've had to shift in order to be able to allow our kids to have voices, in order to be able to acknowledge that they're going to use that voice against us, and not try to put them into the box that our parents did as soon as they did that.
Mhm.
Because the things that we want to instill upon them are things that we know to be true, but it doesn't mean that they're easy when they're used against us, for us not to go into our old programming too.
Yeah.
So true.
Absolutely. I really love the fact that you talked about shifting, how we can shift. And there's that commonality, yourself as well, and us. There is that common thread that connects us. And that is also the programming. Doesn't matter where you come from, there is that initial programming. And just as you mentioned, shifting.
Mhm.
It's 2021. I am still learning every single day.
Oh yeah.
And what I have realized is that, and I still have that, that parent cap on, you put on your parent hat on, like you said, shame, guilt, and all that.
Do as I say.
I
Yeah.
do as I say. I gave birth to you. I carried you for 9 months. My favorite one was, I carried you for 9 months. I gave birth to you. I had a C-section. My stomach was cut off. So,
I
but
injured myself for you.
yeah, but you know what I have realized now, that was just the old programming.
Yes.
And we don't create a healthy relationship with our children when we come from a place of authority or dictatorship.
Yes.
We only create a healthy relationship with our children when we have this a healthy communication, and we talk to them in a manner that, because they, especially the kids who are born here, my kids were born here. My daughter is 18. She was born in Canada. So I have to also shift in understanding how she communicates,
Yes.
and also break that cycle. I don't want to pass it on to her, right? So it's just breaking the cycle that we are carrying, and breaking that cycle that we don't want to pass it to our children, because we don't want them to inherit our bad behavior, I would say, or attitudes on how we communicate. So shifting how we communicate to our kids, my goodness, has been one of the most phenomenal things in my life, because now I'm more present. Okay, I'll give you an example. A few nights ago, I was asleep. I know, Jules, you mentioned this a few last week, where your son, he used to spend the night awake, right? So my daughter went through this kind of same similar things. I don't know, maybe it's their age thing. I don't know. So I woke up. I'm a very light sleeper. I woke up. She's just giggling, talking to all her friends on the phone, and I go in and I knock at the wall. My wall and her wall is very close. So knock at a wall, she didn't hear me. Knock again, and I'm like, I'm sleeping. Get rid of the phone. So she tries to whisper, right? Finally, I got up. What happens? The power authority dictator wakes up. I can't believe she doesn't listen to me.
Can you
I walk
believe
in.
her? The nerve.
I woke up, stomped my foot, went straight to the room, didn't even knock, and opened the door. And I'm like, what do you think you're doing? Until then I realized, okay, just something went off in my mind, and just something just went off and said, okay, this is not going to work.
Yes.
You need to find a different way to communicate. Dictatorship and power and authority is not going to work. She's 18
Mhm.
years old. She's not 5 year old. So
Yeah.
you have to speak in a different way. And I was really, really shocked to just see the flip. I went in there with the intention to take the phone, the computer, everything, right? I
Mhm.
had
Yeah.
it on my hand. And then when that switch went off, I just put it on the table. We ended up 3 in the morning talking for about 45 minutes, just having a conversation. By the time I left, we hugged each other. I love you. Have a good night. Good night. And she went to bed happy. I went to bed happy. So
Yeah.
imagine if the results that we get, the effects on just how we shift, how we speak to our children. My goodness. Had
It-
I gone as the way I did, with the intention, right, of listen
mhm.
to me, do as I
Your
say,
inner 5-year-old took
right?
over. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The ego, the everything, and we think, being a parent means that's what you have to do. But sometimes being a parent means also calm yourself down and just
Mhm.
be able
Mhm.
to be in control of the situation. So now it's having that awareness, creating that awareness, and have that self consciousness of knowing what's happening, because that old habit will come, because we've been
Yes.
programmed. So it will come, something will trigger it. So we just need to be aware of it.
Yes. I love that you talk about that. For me, I have like 4 children, and the age group between the second and the third is 11 years gap.
Wow.
And so my older children, I was a different type of mom. Like I was more like that rigid mom, like, yeah, I didn't like her at all. Right. So I had to look within myself and look within my
Mm,
parenting skill and like, what are the things that I don't like? And truly, truly listen to my children.
mm,
And I reflect back on my parents and like, what are the things that my parents did that I didn't like, and make that shift where, wait, I don't want to do this because if I didn't like it, my children's not going to like it. So I did that shift. So my younger children, which is they're 12 and 8, I'm a completely different mom than I was with my two older ones. So now here's a problem with the two older ones. They're like, well, when I was their age, I didn't get away with
Mm.
that. Or, you spoil them and you do that. So within their eyes, they don't recognize that, they were the, the example. I learned from them
They're
the
your practice
mistake.
run.
They were the practice run. And, so I've shifted our parent, but they don't get that. To them, it's like, you're spoiling them, you're this, you're that. But guess what? I'm wiser.
Mm.
I've learned how to communicate. I've learned how to discipline without that, with that force that I was growing up with. I learned how to just have that conversation and even negotiate with my children, right?
Mm.
And it just, I see where they're, with the older one, they're like, there's that conflict, right? You should do this and you should do that. I'm like, no, we won't do that, and as you say, a couple weeks ago, my younger daughter, she, like, well, she's the only one, she's the younger one, and when she's talking to her friends, she's very loud, and my older son kept telling her she needs to be quiet, and I'm like, okay, tell her again. And he's like, well, she needs to be quiet, I tell her all the time, so now there got to be consequence. And I'm like, hold up. What kind of consequence are we talking about here? And he's like, well, I'll just take away her phone or tablet. And I'm like, no, you won't. You're
Mhm.
just going to keep on reminding her to be quiet. But that's not work. Okay, but you're going to keep on reminding her. We're not going to consequence her and silence her because you don't want to hear her voice,
Mm.
right? Or she's too loud for you. Like, it's not going to happen, because those are the ways that we suppress our voice and silence ourselves.
Mm.
And then he was a bit upset because I wasn't agreeing with him, but I'm like, I'm not going to silence you because you're too loud talking to your friend, and I'm going to consequence you for that. No, we're going to remind you. And right now you're stuck in the house anyway. So where is the opportunity for you to use, as they quote unquote, the outdoor voice?
Mhm.
If you're indoor 24/7, 7 days a week,
Mm.
you know?
Yes.
So after all this pandemic, if all you ever use is your indoor voice and everybody's always saying, shh, be quiet, and this goes on for a year or two, now that's your new normal, where you're going to be be quiet, and then you learn to suppress your voice, right? So I see where I had to stand up and like, no, we're not going to silence her. She's going to use her voice. If she's too loud, we'll remind her, but we're not going to consequence her, because those are the old ways. We
Mhm.
Well,
consequence
and
her,
also
you
that
know?
must be hard, Nikisha, for you, because also in honoring him and having
Mm,
him be heard, that's
yes,
really challenging for
yes,
him,
yes.
and also not wanting to silence her. I mean, parenting 101,
It,
like
it, it, it,
there's
it
no
is
right or
a
wrong.
struggle. No, there's no right or wrong. It's a struggle.
Oh.
So it's like, we'll keep on reminding her, and that's what we do. Like, if she's a bit too loud, we'll remind her. And she usually tone her voice down, right? But we have to, like, we're not going to punish you, to be silent. Like, no, that's a whole nother level right there,
And I
right?
think, yeah, I think the leadership part, if we were to actually look at ourselves instead of being parents, which we often think of as being that authoritative, like dominating, this is it, my way or the highway. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of using that leadership role, because some old leadership roles were like that as well, Welchian leadership roles, and going, wait a second, what sort of leader do I want to be? What sort
Mm-hmm.
of leader do I
Hmm.
want my kids to be?
Mhm.
Yes.
And am I really modeling that? And I think if we shift that, then, like Fadwa, like your experience of being with your daughter, and instead of like enforcing those laws that you had just made up in your head and you were gonna go with no matter what, to go, wait a second, I have to honor and respect where she's at, and I haven't even checked in yet. I don't even know where she's at. I'm gonna give this a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Then that's an entirely different relationship that you're going to be able to build together, right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think up to this day, what reminds me constantly is I always talk about this, Gary Zukov. And he actually talks about that in The Seed of the Soul. He talks about having an intention, right? So anytime you see yourself angry or upset, or you're just fueled with so much anger, he says the moment you do that, the consequences are going to be painful.
Yes.
So realizing the moment you're feeling that anger, and that's for me now, that's where I'm always at. Anytime I feel a different emotion, I have that checkbox. I'm having that awareness. Okay, hold on. I'm angry. I'm upset. And what will be the consequences? And is the consequences what I'm looking for, the objective? Is it what I'm actually looking for? Am I going to get it by me being angry? And chances are it's not, right? So you wake up with an intention of always having the end in mind. What is your objective? And that's the only thing that drives me now. What is my objective? My objective is to empower, inspire, support, encourage. That's
Yes.
my objective. So what do I need to do? I need to have an intention and align it with an action that is in alignment with the objective, that will give me the objective I want. So going in there and screaming and yelling is not going to get me the objective I want. So what I do is I have that intention. And even at the time when I'm angry, and we're human beings, we will get angry. We are parents, we will get angry. Kids will get into our nerves. It's normal. But to have that conscious awareness to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. What do I need to do? What is the objective? My objective is to have a connection with my child, to build a strong bond with my child, to empower them and to support them. And this can be with your partner. It doesn't even have to be with your child. It can be with your partner. When you feel like maybe at that time you don't feel like loving them at the same time and you have anger, pull in, he says, go into that bucket of patience, pick something up, either patience or kindness or compassion. Just pick something that will drive you towards setting your intention. Once you set your intention, take an action upon that will align with the objective you're looking for.
Mhm.
And I use that. I use that on a daily basis in interaction at work, in my personal life, in my professional life. And I feel I'm a lot calmer because now it's like my objective is, and that's it. And that's what drives me. So
Yes.
Can I add to that after you're
yes,
done? Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So even to our listeners, uh, as you're listening into this, just share with us what is the one thing you use to help you anchor
Mm.
that relationship and create that strong bond, even when you're most upset and angry or you're full of fury and rage. What is it, that one thing that you do that just brings you back to that where you need to be, and then you use that to align yourself with the objective you're looking for? Jules, go
Mm.
ahead.
I was just going to say that you were talking about Gary Zukov,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in a course with Gary, and
Mm-hmm.
he was teaching. It was this very small group, a couples retreat actually,
Mm-hmm.
and he got really frustrated and upset with somebody. Very obviously, this
Mm-hmm.
man in the couple was really getting on his nerves, and he was at his end. And I just remember thinking, wow, Gary, whoa, I wonder how he's going to deal with this, because he was at wit's end. And he came back and said to the whole class, I am sorry about the way that I responded in that situation. I was being challenged, and I realize now that the challenge was about me and thinking that I should have control, when in reality, that was happening, and I just couldn't be present with it. And then he spoke directly to the man that he was having the challenges with, and apologized to the class, and was able to walk through the things that were going on with him
Mm-hmm.
as it was happening. And I just remember going, wow, like that's even better than him telling us what we should do.
Yes.
He just demonstrated it, just like a parent, right? It's like when a parent says, I am sorry, because you know what? I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even hear you out. You were upset. I didn't care about the fact you were upset because I was only thinking about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I am really sorry that I wasn't here for you, but I'm here now. And that power is just so wonderful, to be able to see somebody in a leadership role, somebody you look up to, your parent, actually admit that they didn't respond the way that they wanted to, and they're recognizing it, and they're honoring you by telling you about it. And that is so powerful.
I
Mhm.
just, like you mentioned, that's really amazing because it shows that anytime you feel those emotions, something has been triggered within you. Now
Yes.
we have about a minute or so to wrap up. This has been really interesting show. I just wanted you to, Nakeisha, to go in and just share the last few words so our viewers and our listeners can benefit from this topic today.
Okay, so the two things that I could say that help me, one for my children is as a behavioral therapist, there's different techniques that we use, our tools that we use with the people them that we support. So with my children, one of the things that I practice and I also teach my husband is that the consequence needs to fit the crime. Because oftentimes, like we will do these drastic measures for a tiny incident, and then we do this drastic measure for the big incident, right? So it's just to be mindful that the consequence need to fit the crime. And for myself, when I find myself in rage or anger or any kind of frustration within, especially towards another person, one of the affirmation that I say to myself is that he who controls me controls my emotion. And I say that silently to myself, and then it will remind me, like, wait, why am I letting this person control me? And that calms me down completely to the point where even if it's in an argument or whatever it is, I'm able to be still and just remind myself that I need to be in control at all time of me. I could only control myself. I can't control the other person. And just remembering that, you know what, the whatever it is not going to be solved if there's emotion. So usually I walk away, or best way to get away from it. And then once I'm calm to a neutral level, then I deal with the situation after that.
Yeah, Jules.
uh, Based on the first introduction of what we're speaking of today, of our voice and how powerful it is, I think that remembering that speaking is really powerful, and also remembering, like Nakeisha said there too, remembering that it's important to not quiet ourselves as we're growing up, as we're learning, which we're doing until we die, right? So nobody's out of that spectrum. Uh, Knowing that, wow, am I being silent now? Am I silencing me? For everybody, am I silencing me so that I can feel and be with what this is? And when is it important to speak out? And who can I speak out with and be comfortable speaking out with to practice while I'm getting ready to speaking out with the world? Because it's most important that you honor yourself and where you're at and what is true to you. And your voice does matter, but you get to choose where and how you use it, and honor that however that is right for you. You might want to speak to everybody all at once as you break apart and come alive and birth yourself. Or it might just be, two or three really important people that you want to start practicing with, but that your voice matters and that your voice has power and can connect and impact people in ways that you couldn't even imagine.
Wow, thank you very much, both of you. I'm just going to leave you with a word or two myself. We initially talked about staying silent and raising your voice. I truly believe in following what it's in within you. If that's something within you says, "Mm-mm, just stay silent, your time will come to speak," then
Mhm.
trust in it, because there is a reason why it's saying that to you. And if that time comes up and something within you says, "Mm-mm, you cannot
Mhm.
stay silent anymore," break your silence and speak up. Trust in it, because you are ready to face the consequences, because there is consequences. The moment you say something, there's going to be consequences. And at that point, you're ready to face the consequences. The last point I would like to point out to you is that anytime somebody comes to you with a problem, remember, it's no longer their problem. It is your problem now. So to actually pay attention to your emotions, to your emotions, because they will trigger something within you. Anytime you're angry, upset, it's nothing to do with somebody else. It's just something telling you within you, hey, pay attention to me. Something is going on here. So to pay attention to that, something that's going in, and take care of it and address it, acknowledge it, and learn from it. So I invite you to just continue with having a conversation with us. Follow us on the Gems of Life show via YouTube. You can follow us on our website. You can send us an email on our website, on Facebook as well. We have a page. It's called the Gems of Life show. I really look forward to having a conversation with you. And I'm so grateful you're able to join us on the CKMS Radio 102.7 FM. Till next week, be safe and stay well. And remember, aspire to
Inspire.
Inspire. Woo.
fire.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.